Volume's down. Yeah, I'm good.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Living Your Best Life with DENNISH. We're going to have a good show today. I have my weekly guest here with me, Jonathan, to my right. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Hamilton Radio.
And I have Jamie from Texas on the line. Hi, Jamie.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a blessed and wonderful day. Welcome to the show.
So far, so good. And I want to just let everybody know this is our first time airing our show in the Hamilton Radio studio. And I want to thank everybody at Hamilton Radio for having this amazing vision and dream to have a studio like this. And they actually made it a reality. So thank you to Doc and Monk and Ruben and everybody else that made this possible for all of us. So, on that note, we're ready to start our show. Last week we spoke about kindness and words matter and words count. Today we're going to start the show off with that words also count on social media, and kindness and compassion also should count on social media. I will say this is kind of a pet peeve of mine. I've been researching social media, all different types, for years, and I've written a story about it called When Social Networking Becomes Social Not Working. And that's what we're going to talk about today on the show. And I want to touch base with how things can be perceived as kind or unkind on social media. And I know, Jonathan, you had a feeling about when people say, oh, I didn't mean it to hurt you, I didn't mean it to upset you, and you had a good direct comment about that.
I think I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that how easy it is to touch so many people's lives so easily with social media. And when I say social media, I'm an old guy, so it's Facebook and Instagram is like Instagram was a leap of faith for me.
Right.
But with a swipe of a finger, or a touch of a button, or a click of a mouse, which takes an instant, you can touch so many people. And along with that ability comes the responsibility of really thinking before you click or swipe, because once you do it, and I guess there are some provisions to edit, but once you do it, you can't take it back. So when you think about being kind, part of being kind is making sure that you're not hurtful to others, and you got to question your motives when you post things.
Absolutely.
And especially when it comes to things that really shouldn't be aired in public, things that should be dealt with privately. And I've been guilty of it. You get frustrated because you may not be getting your point across, or there may be some poor communication that led up to that frustration, and all of a sudden you have this newfound toy, social media, where you can seemingly innocently let everybody know how you feel and how you've been hurt or you're frustrated. But what ends up happening is you're hurting other people, making other people uncomfortable, maybe even embarrassing someone else or another group of people. I mean, it doesn't have to be an individual, although I think we're talking about individual cases, but it's been said to me once or twice, maybe, because I never make the same mistake once. I have to make it several times before I figure it out.
Don't we all?
And, yeah, right. So, and what was said to me was, hey, other people that I know see that. And when you think about it, that's really, even if you might have reacted to something, because doing that is being reactive, not being responsive.
Right.
And you just made things worse. You didn't make anything better. You may have felt better for an instant, but really, part of being kind is being socially responsible.
It's true because I see a lot of people on social media pages, they wouldn't dare say half of that stuff to your face. And that's where I say some people get so caught up that social media is, it's not like being in person with somebody, seeing their body language, looking at a hurt expression on their face, or just being, in their physical company together. The internet, so many people post these things, and then there's misinterpretation, like, oh, if I was having a bad day and I wrote something, somebody else will call me and say, did you write that for me? And it's just, I've become very cautious on social media. And another reason too, my children are on there, family members are on there, friends of my children are on there. So I'm always cautious to be as positive as I can. I don't go on there to hurt anybody, to be judgmental. Thoughts on this, Jamie?
Oh my goodness, I have so many thoughts on it. I just wanted to wait. Jonathan, thank you for the comment of, I guess you pointing out that you have to make mistakes more than once. And I think I agree with Ann when she just said that. Yes, we all do. And yes, I think with social media, we forget that it's out there to share. Yeah, share the woe is me, share something, but at the same time, be careful of the ripple effect that it has on other people.
Right.
And there's no reason to be mean behind anything. There's already movies out there called Mean Girls and various others, books out there that emphasize the drama of being mean. We forget to be kind. It's okay to air your dirty laundry when you're airing your own.
Right.
Just do it in a way where it's about you, not about another person. I could go on and complain about ex-husband, parents that did me wrong, sisters that have done me wrong, friends that have done me wrong. But at the end of the day, it was how I interpreted it, how I handled it, and how I went through it. So there's no point on being negative.
Absolutely.
Behind any of it.
Well, that's the whole point. We were talking last week, words matter. Well, written words matter just as much. And this is where social media, somebody might not say it to your face, but I've seen a lot of nasty stuff go on social media. I scroll by when I see people venting certain things or bashing someone I know. I just think, where's the kindness? It's social media. You can look at the positive. It's another forum for people to connect, spread love and light, spread positivity, spread good vibes. It gets so negative sometimes. It's like watching the news. You almost, I gave up watching the news because I'd rather see social media. Now there are times I go on social media and think, what's the point? Some days are so negative and so sad, and it's another forum, just like this radio show is, to spread something good into the world.
You just said about news, and you're right. I remember one of the reasons why I did not remain in the city that my parents live in Wisconsin was because I want to say it was my senior year in college. Maybe it was my junior year. I'm driving from home to my early morning job at that time. Then from that job, I drove to school. Then from school to another job. And then from that job to a third job. And every time I got on the vehicle and turned on the radio, there was pure negative, pessimistic news. And I'm talking homicides, shootings, a police officer, tragedy, a burnt house, graffiti. Everything that they talked about during those drives was negative. And I said, okay, first of all, no longer listening to the radio. Now, this was before we had, Sirius radio and a lot of other options. But I started listening, I'm going to date myself here, to cassette tapes all the time because the pessimism. And I did move from that town. I graduated from college and moved far away because I was tired of the drama. And you're right. Now we have the media. Now we have it at our fingertips. You Google something, and sometimes the first Google searches are negative, or Bing search, or whatever search engine you're using. It's time for us to really evaluate what we're putting out there, what energy we're putting out there, And because of the words, just like we talked about last week, the words we use in our posts they have their algorithms to, oh, they talked about this. Well, let me show them posts about that.
Right, right.
So we breed back to us what we give off. The laws of attraction are so true and real.
And they're true on social media as well as in real life. And people, don't seem to understand that sometimes. And, like I said, social media is a great forum. If people just look at everything from a positive light, you can do so much good with social media. And it's very sad to see when people are unkind on there. And they, like Jonathan said, they do have a motive for being unkind.
You don't want to get caught up in in any kind of reactive behavior because of the real time. You're not, go back to the 24-hour rule. But I saw a post, and I actually shared it, and it was a post about kindness, and it started out by saying always be the best person you can be. Well, that takes planning and forethought. But it also requires taking a breath, because we're all going to make mistakes. The mistake you make on the mistake you make when you post something that you shouldn't, because it's either mean-spirited, because look, the reason behind a post that falls into this category comes from a negative place.
Right.
So the post said always be the best person you can be. Be kind when you're tired. Be understanding when you're angry. We're all going to mess up. And if we do mess up in life, instead of waiting to fix it, also guilty of this more than once,
Gee, I'm not.
Is to do your best to make up for it as soon as you possibly can.
Right. I agree.
Not, just like you want to wait 24 hours before
Sure.
you react to something. You want to be the exact opposite when you recognize that you've made a mistake. So, I think when you come from a place of kindness, and you've planned that, and that's your life, it should come naturally.
Do we have a caller? Doc, did we have a caller? Oh, okay. Oh, uh-oh.
It's a new place. We're getting used.
If they
to
call in again,
dynamics.
you know what? Just yell out and we'll answer it.
So anyway, just to finish the post, it also says that when somebody talks, you have to listen to them and not think about how you're going to reply. You listen first. Take a breath before you reply. Well, when you're using social media, it should be the same thing. And quite frankly, if we get right back to it, these are the types of things we shouldn't be posting on social media. We should be posting. We share things.
Right.
We share with our children.
Hang on one sec. Hello, caller? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello?
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Not sure what happened there, but while we're waiting, I'll just finish the thought. Is anything that we use social media for it should be for sharing. Sharing is a positive thing. Sharing implies something positive. You can share negative things too. I realize that, but when you're coming from a place of kindness, and we all know that being kind is being considerate and exposing yourself or putting yourself out there on behalf of somebody else without expecting anything in return. Boy, it got loud in here.
It got really loud in here.
The great experiment.
This is like
Welcome to the new Hamilton Radio.
This is like the guy, the Wizard of Oz, behind the screen.
Right. Pay no attention to that guy behind
On
the
the
curtain.
screen, the curtain, yeah. You know, I have to wonder, you've brought up the word motive for certain posts. So I'm also looking at the word motive and agenda. Is there a motive and agenda for being unkind?
Well, there always is.
Well, what do you think it is? See, this is where I'm a simple girl. I think it's so much easier to be kind. And if you can't, you stay quiet, you keep to yourself. I mean, I don't understand people that can be unkind. I don't.
It's simpler to be kind, just like it's easier to smile than to frown because you use less muscles in your face.
So what would be a motive or agenda?
Well, it doesn't mean that it's always easy to be kind or easy to smile. So the motive or the agenda for being unkind is because you're offended. And I guess the tricky part is to really think before you react, because we want to be kind, not return in kind. And we say everybody's got stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to use the emoji word again, but everybody's got stuff. So consider the other person. Consider means being considerate. It's not always easy. It's not always easy to be kind. It's simpler. Life would be simpler if everybody was kind and considerate, but we're not always kind and considerate. When we're not kind and considerate, we have to recognize that right away. And there's nothing wrong with apologizing. I think we have another call.
Hello? Caller, are you there? Hello?
Hello, Nancy.
Oh. Hello?
Can you hear me? Hello, Nancy.
Yeah, I got you, Jamie. I think somebody else is on the line.
Okay. Hello?
Hello? Can you hear us?
Can you hear me? I can hear you now.
Yeah, but
This is a.
okay. Caller, are you still on the line?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, welcome to Living Your Best Life. Do you have a comment to share with us, or an experience, or your personal opinion?
Yes, ma'am. I have left from to Texas and called Greyhound, and I'm now in Colorado.
You know what, caller, can you just turn the sound down on your computer, because we're getting a little feedback from you, and I want to hear what you have to say.
Or if you're
Is that a little better?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that better?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I had walked 3 states from Alabama to Texas and experienced sleeping in buses, sleeping in dumpsters, and every possible place that I could think of, and wound up in Colorado Springs. I have overcome so many things, so many obstacles, and if everybody would start showing one act of kindness a day, it completely changes the world.
Absolutely.
I see more homelessness on that, and more homeless people will help you than anybody walking down the road.
Wow. I agree with you on that. This is one of the things I'm trying to do with this radio show, is to spread kindness, because, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show is random acts of kindness. It doesn't necessarily have to cost you money to be kind to somebody, to help them. Sometimes just listening to them, being there for them, not judging them, not being hurtful is a big thing.
I just want to point out real quick, anybody listening who wants to call in, you're more than welcome. But when you call in, please turn off whatever you're listening to, because the background noise interferes with your phone call.
And we really want to hear
and
what
we
you have
can't
to
hear
say.
you.
Your call is important to us.
I
Go
think you guys are doing a fantastic job.
I'm sorry?
I think that you guys are doing a fantastic job.
Oh, thank you
thank you
so
so
much. Thank you. We appreciate that.
And where are you from again?
Well, I am from a little bit all over, but I'm in Colorado Springs right now. My name is April Nicole Powers.
It's nice to meet you, April.
Nice to meet you, April, and thank you so much. That means a lot to me that you called in.
Ma'am?
Yes.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said it means a lot to me that you took the time to call in and talk to us and tell us what you thought about the show.
Well, thank you guys very much. I believe that you guys are very positive people, and positive people need to make a difference in the world instead of just spread love, pretty much.
Well, thank you.
I'm one of the most positive people, there is in negative situations, and I just have to keep that thought that there's somebody out there that will show kindness and show act of love to people, because you don't see that in the world anymore.
No, it's you're right. It's tough, and I appreciate that you're such a kind person out in Colorado Springs, spreading kindness wherever you can go. You're making a big difference where you are, and you made a difference, believe me, in my life today for calling in and saying all this, and I thank you for that.
Thank you, guys. I thank y'all, and y'all keep up the great work.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Appreciate you.
You too.
Thanks.
Bye now. Well, that was sweet.
That was lovely. See? It's a point we're trying to make. There are other kind people in the world, and it sounds like she's had a bit of a hardship, but just still keeps plugging away like the rest of us. Just still try and make the world a better place, show some kindness where we can go. That was love. That made my day. I will tell you that. That just made my day.
There you go.
I could get a little emotional. That made my day.
That's all right. Being emotional doesn't make you fragile. I'm living proof.
No, I think being emotional makes us real. We're not porcelain dolls.
Oh, okay. Wow. Well, that was certainly a wonderful random act of kindness for her to call in. It really was.
Here's an answer for your from your friend, Rich, who just messaged me.
Oh, we got Rich McGill, who's private messaging. Go ahead, Jonathan. What did he say? Hi, Rich.
He goes. He says if someone is hurt, they may want you hurt too. There's the agenda, motive, to get a similar mindset. So I appreciate that, Rich. I know exactly what you're saying.
Misery loves company.
Yeah, misery loves company. And if you're feeling hurt, and
Oh, boy.
I think it's almost human instinct to want to make the other person feel the same way. It's a good point. I'm not saying it's right. The problem with social media is we can actually do that really quickly without thinking. And once we do it, if you think before you talk or before you speak, you have an opportunity to be kind instead of hurtful.
Right.
With social media, you put something out there, they may not see it right away, but they'll see it sooner or later. And so everybody they know and everybody within your mutual circle will know. And what you've done is probably hurt them 10 times worse than they hurt you. And we still haven't established what their motive was.
No.
Maybe their motive wasn't to hurt you. Maybe you took it the wrong way.
It says
You
you.
know-
Right?
Sorry, Jonathan. Yesterday, I believe Ann and I had a conversation about that, in the perception of what we think is going on with the other person, or why they said what they had. Part of the issue is communication.
Right.
And communication can't, when body language and voice tones and voice volume aren't being heard, then we truly don't understand the message that was communicated. Written words are only part of it. Or, going on to that childhood thing of, remember when if a little boy or a little girl, hit you on the playground, it meant they liked you. And all of that is lack of communication. It's not knowing how to communicate. It's not having the tools and resources of how to communicate. And too often, because we're in the world of immediate feedback, immediate responses, that's where the breakdown in communication comes, especially on social media.
Exactly.
I think the reference last week, and I thought about this afterwards, was when a little boy pulls a little girl's hair.
Yeah.
And it's probably for another show, but there are still little girls that like to have their hair pulled. Thanks for laughing. Nobody got that.
Yeah, I got it.
So yeah, that's for another
move along,
show. For
move
sure.
along. But you know what, Jamie, you had a good point there. But sometimes they think the communication thing, maybe, I think a lot of that stuff is fear-based. Maybe they don't want to be vulnerable because they've gotten burned in the past by being vulnerable. That's understandable, but you can't carry that kind of fear from relationship to relationship, friendship to friendship, year after year of your life. I mean, I would think, I know at this age of my life, I think kindness, compassion, communication are all good things. And all too many times you see people that they react out of fear, which is understandable. But if you can communicate that to another person, like, listen, this is what I'm feeling. And the bottom line is, I'm afraid this is going to happen. I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid of that. Okay, then you got something to go by. You've just opened the dialogue to, okay, let's talk about how you feel about this. And I think the same can be said with social media. I think people make assumptions, and you have to have communication because assumptions can be wrong. I don't like to be in a position where I have to assume what the other person is feeling or thinking or why they're doing something. Just tell me. Then I can understand it, process it for 24 hours, and try to help. If I can help, I'll help.
You can't. Social media comes with social responsibility.
Absolutely.
Being kind is a mission. It really shouldn't be a mission, but because every day you see less and less kindness in the world, what we want to do is to kind of reverse that. And by being kind, even when it's not easy to be kind, because maybe you feel like you're under attack, take a deep breath. Don't return in kind. Be kind. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to social media, you have to be really careful. You have to be kind as so often that kindness is second nature, and that being mean, for lack of a better word, becomes foreign to you. I don't believe anybody should just. I have this thing about turning the cheek. Well, turn the cheek one time, don't turn it again. I mean, there comes a point where everybody needs to defend themselves, but you don't defend yourself by inciting a crowd, which is what you do when you go on social media.
It's like the schoolyard years ago when somebody had a fight, everybody formed a circle around the two that were having the fist fight.
Yeah, I've been there.
I know you have.
That, all of that is so very true. Thoughts become words, words become actions. And if we're constantly thinking negative, then negative is going to come out of us.
Right.
And then we're going to attract negative. If we're thinking positive, just like you said, Jonathan, it becomes the way of life. And it always shocks me when somebody comes and says, I can't even give an example off the top of my head, but when they say negative things about other people, and I'm not talking like they're trying to understand them. I'm talking they're talking bad about them. They're gossiping. They're being negative, or they have negative thoughts. And I think, where does that come from? I don't even see those things in other people. I automatically am trying to look at the good, or trying to process through the reasons for their actions or words or thoughts before I just fire away. And guilty for myself, occasionally I can't remember that for when somebody attacks me, I'll immediately go into defense mode. But I do try to think about everything, process it through, and really feel what it's like. Empathize. We talked about that too. Empathizing for the other person.
Right.
It's not that difficult to stop, put your feelings in check. And there's a meditation, and I shouldn't even say a meditation. There's a technique that I use when I get angry or hurt or upset or frustrated, and it's called the six senses check-in. I check in with all six senses. Okay, stop. What am I tasting? What do I literally taste in my mouth right now at this moment? What do I smell? What do I hear? What do I see? What do I feel? What am I thinking? And then it gives me a chance to calm down, relax, respond to the situation, and just like as in social media, not blast or fire back or give a negative response just because they started with something negative.
Exactly.
It's easier said than done, much easier said than done. Yet all of us need to find how we can practice kindness, even when somebody's not kind to us. How can we practice giving to them clearly what they need, but they don't know how to express what they need? But yet not doing it to the energy vampires or the victims that, just want to suck the life out of everybody and always be Debbie Downer or, negative.
You know what? I think that
Nasty.
now I'm thinking about what you're saying, Jamie. I didn't want to go off in a tangent, but I struggle with this as an empath. I feel everything. And even if somebody is not being kind to me, I'm still worried about how they're feeling. And I can't really be unkind to somebody else. So I was thinking a couple days ago, like, what do you do? Is this where the boundaries come into play? Where you have a boundary, and if somebody's being that way, you at least say to them, listen, I know you have feelings if we can't talk about it, but you can't do this to me. You can't say this to me all the time. That's what I mean, the boundary of crossing it. It's a really slippery slope.
Yeah, but you let people cross the boundary, sorry to say.
Well, that's a lifetime thing. I'm working on it.
But by doing that, so you don't want to be unkind to somebody who's been unkind to you.
Right.
And I think that's a great way to think and a great way to be. But at some point, and there is no fine line here, by doing that, you become unkind to yourself.
That's a good point. And I'm going to back up on the boundary thing. I have set boundaries throughout my life, and I call those life lessons that keep coming back up because you didn't learn it the first time and it repeats itself. I didn't want to point at you.
I'll do it.
And now what did you just say after that?
No, I said you're going to be unkind to yourself.
It is being unkind to yourself, and that is such a terrible place, especially being empathetic. You don't want to hurt another human being, but you're being hurt. And so what do you do with that? It's hard. I know I try to, and I won't say I try to fix everybody because I know you can't fix another person. But I am always constantly trying to help someone else, but we can't always do that.
But you're always hopeful that maybe they'll be fixed or
I know
they'll improve. I get that.
Well, that's where
It's optimism.
I'd like to think everybody is capable of change. Everybody is capable of empathy. Maybe they're not. Maybe I really am a hopeful person and a positive person that I really think, even using this radio show and my social media pages, I'm going to do this till the day I leave this earth and try to make this world a better place. I really am.
Words, Jamie. Excuse me. Words don't always become actions. I'm sorry. I just that stuck in my head when you said that. A lot of times, words do become actions, and a lot of times people use words to inspire people to action. Sometimes for good, sometimes for not so good. But the words hurt. Once they're out there, you can't take them back. You cannot act on them. I've said this before, because I've been accused of it.
And a woman never forgets what you say.
No, no matter
You don't.
forever.
We'll forgive it and tuck it back into a compartment for a long time until another time that another hurtful thing comes up. We do remember, but
It triggers it.
It's a trigger, yes.
It's a trigger that, and you think,
now
wow,
now you did it.
how could you possibly remember that? And I guess the more mature I become, I don't want to say the older I get, but the more mature I become,
The more enlightened,
the more enlightened
you become.
the
Enlightenment.
the less of a caveman I become. The more I realize, don't make me think that. The more I realize that the responsibility that you have towards your fellow man, forget about relationships, just your fellow man, is to be kind, be considerate. Years ago, I used to say, if everybody was kind, there would be no war. Hey, let's have a war. Everybody shows up and lights a bonfire and toasts marshmallows.
You know why? Because
That'd be a great war.
there's kindness and there's communication and there's compromise.
Exactly. Even though compromise isn't exact, but exactly what you said.
Yeah, you get the
I get
gist. You get the gist.
I get it. So when we talk about these things, we really take them to heart. And once again, just so everybody understands, when we're talking about this, we're not preaching to anybody. It's just the way we feel about things, and we've come to a point in our lives collectively that we feel that a path of kindness is healthier for everybody. It's more constructive. It's not destructive, and all those words are positive words, whereas destructive is a negative word. Constructive is a positive word. Being considerate is positive. Being rude is negative. So really, just be kind. Be careful with your use of a very powerful tool, which is social media.
And you know, Jamie, when you say words become actions, I'm going to put a twist on that because I understand what you're saying. I always say the actions are what make the words true. So whatever you're saying, you have to have the actions to back them up. If you're going to tell me all these wonderful things, the actions speak louder than words. Then they make the words truth. They make the words truth.
Oh, definitely. And that is one thing that I think I remember as a child. My parents always saying, well, prove it, show it. And that's the actions. If you're going to talk about it, if you're going to say it, those are the actions. And what I more mean is that the more we talk about something, and the more we say something, the more it becomes habit or becomes real.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, and that's what by thoughts become words, words become actions. And
negative words. The more negative you're speaking, then that becomes negative actions.
Well, it creates
or
that
even positive.
Mm-hmm.
Either way.
Right.
It's whatever you speak is the attraction that comes to you.
It's like I said before, I've said words and never acted on them. But the words, when I think about them, I just love reliving my mistakes. By the way, when I think about the words, I used words specifically because the person I used them against was vulnerable to those words. So even though I never acted on them, and I said, "Yeah, you're right, I said that. I've said a lot of things that I've never actually done. But when you think about the motive, you talk about a motive and an agenda. Well, what was the motive? I used those words, even though I never intended to act on them, because I knew that they would be hurtful. I knew that for whatever reason, whether I was being defensive, which made me become offensive, that was something, that was a button that was pushed. I pushed a button.
A trigger. It's a trigger.
And, you know, that is mean. That is being mean.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I say, I'm surrounded by women, but I'm going to say this anyway. Those jeans make you look fat. Well, you know what? Why do you say something like that? And we joke about it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if a woman asks you if these jeans make you look fat, you just run. Just head out the door, keep going, go get some milk.
No, you're
or
supposed to
something, go
tell
the
them,
store.
no, it doesn't.
Well,
You're supposed to be kind and say, no, they don't.
Yeah, that's really kind. Wear those out tonight.
Oh, there's your motive. You didn't want to be seen with her wearing the jeans that made her look fat. There you go. There's the motive and the agenda.
But yeah, so motive and agenda is really to be hurtful because you know it's going to hurt them. So it really doesn't matter if you act on it. And believe me, I'm not saying it, but I'm thinking of specific instances and when I look back on it, well, what is your own personal motive and agenda? Forget about trying to figure out somebody else's motive. We spend more time trying to figure out
Other people.
what other people, or why did they do that to me? How could they hurt me? Why would they do that? Well, and you can't figure it out. You can't talk about it. You're not communicating. So what do? You either lash out, which is really what it is, and the better you know somebody, or the better you know people in general, you know how you can elicit a response equal to the way you're feeling out of them, instead of putting yourself in that kindness mode and that considerate mode. And then along comes social media, and boom, well, I can't communicate with them. They're not listening to me. I'm not listening to them either. So
I'm just going to
let's
write a
type
post.
few words, or find a meme that we can post and comment on, and just share it. And that person, and you're so good at it, you know that when that person sees it, they're going to know exactly who it's meant for, and exactly what your agenda and your motive is. And you still haven't figured out what theirs is. But had you communicated to begin with, the whole thing could have been avoided.
I agree with you on that because, boy, that's the whole thing of making assumptions. You're assuming the other person's acting this way. Like you were saying, Jamie, too, we try to justify it. We try to understand. Perhaps we just answered our own questions today, is that we have to look more at ourselves. And what are your boundaries? What are you feeling? Why is it constantly happening? Why is someone being unkind? Why is somebody being mean? It's not so much about why they're doing it. If they don't want to discuss it, we're not going to know. But we have to figure out our feelings and where it's coming. Everything begins with you. It begins with us.
At some point, again, at some point, you have to take the high road.
Well, this is a slippery slope, this one today.
Right?
It is. I don't know.
Part of being kind would behoove everyone to take the high road when you find yourself in a situation where you want to do something that is, for lack of a better word, it's vengeful. And I just, more and more, there's just less room in my life for, in all of our lives, really, it's just a question of realization, for that kind of behavior, for that kind of, again, negativity. I don't want to battle anymore. I just want to figure out a way to work on compromise and resolution. And something came up this week about kindness and reconciliation. Well, you know, I was told, somebody had said something to me about they wanted, if nothing else, we want to just be amicable. And you know what amicable? And I didn't, I never looked it up. So this is my own definition of amicable. Everybody,
It's friendly. It's cordial.
That's it. That means there's no hard feelings. It doesn't mean that everybody gets their way.
No, and that's where the whole, when you talk about the reconciliation, isn't that kindness? No, because that means you have to reconcile with toxic people that you've distanced from your life, whether they're family or friends or exes or something else. You can still be cordial. Do I believe that that's part of, that you need to reconcile with them? No, because that's messing up your whole vibe in your tribe with that. That's what I think. Jamie, any thoughts on that?
I'm actually enjoying listening to you guys, but I love how you brought up the tribe and making it flow, vibe in your tribe. The bottom line is with all that we're talking about is we ourselves have to be in control and put ourselves in check in order to be able to respond to the things that are brought up to us. And then in of ourselves as human beings, we have to be in control to make the choices of what we say or type or do. Mm-hmm. And then we have to be prepared to feel the responses that come back, whether they're negative, positive, or what. But communication all starts with the person themselves.
It does. And I know there's times like, that I'll say, you got to go frozen. You got to let it go. And I think I'm at a place in my life where it's hard when there's negativity around you because you would think that positivity would win out 10 times over. And it's tough. I mean, I can be as positive I want. It's not doesn't mean it's always going to happen. That's why I tell the kids, if you're all in bad moods, if everybody in my house is in a bad mood, eventually that's going to work its way to me eventually. And because it's hard to fight something like that.
Well, you're outnumbered.
You're outnumbered.
You're
you
outnumbered.
Are.
You're overwhelmed. And I say a lot of stuff. I don't know if I'm plagiarizing or not, but I think this was an original thought. When you're overwhelmed with joy, I likened it to flying. When you're overwhelmed with negativity and sadness, you're drowning. Mm-hmm. I would rather be flying than drowning. Communication and conversation, or the lack of it, which is what leads to a lot of stuff we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Whether it's your neighbor, whether it's the cashier at the grocery store, your significant other, that lack of communication is a problem. The longer you don't communicate, the harder it is to start the conversation. So the 24-hour thing, and I'm never going to forget it, is I think is a wise thing. Before you react to somebody and you maybe attack them or go on the offensive, because the best defense is a good offense. You can't let it go too long,
No.
because the longer you let it go, it's almost like starting over again. So all the communication and all the good that you've built up can erode with lack of communication and lack of conversation. So part of being positive and kind and using social media responsibly is preparing your mind every day. When you go to bed grateful, you wake up happy and positive, but that takes a little bit of time. You know, I wake up early in the morning before it's still dark out. This morning it was the birds. I heard birds chirping. And I thought, they just start chirping just before dawn. And it was a positive thought, and it was almost a meditative thought. But it kind of set the tone for the day. Do I have stuff? I have stuff. But I'm not going to let that overwhelm me with sadness. I'm going to work on being overwhelmed with happiness, so I can fly through the rest of the day instead of drowning.
No, I agree with you. And you know, the thing with communication, I also believe in that agree to disagree. You're not always going to agree. And you know what? That's okay. That's what makes you different human beings. I mean, I don't always agree with my children, but, you know, we'll agree to disagree, come to a compromise. They're their own people. You know, they're 17 and 21, the two that live at home. I don't necessarily agree with everything, but we agree to disagree on some points in the world. And I think that's okay. I think a lot of people think you have to agree on every single thing. I think the disagreement, if you can't agree with the person, that's where the respect and kindness comes in to say, well, I don't really understand what you're saying, or I don't really agree with that. But if that's how you feel, I got to believe you and be kind and understand that's a trigger for you, or that's a point for you, or that's something you don't care about or care for.
I was just thinking, and you said it. That takes mutual respect.
Absolutely.
You have to respect the person that you disagree with. You don't have to love them, because what you disagree on may make you not compatible as people, whether it's your neighbor or anybody, any individual. The only time I could think that I would not agree to disagree with somebody is if I was disagreeing with them being hurtful, negative, disrespectful, a bully. I'm never going to agree to disagree with a bully. So I mean, and that could be a whole nother topic, but
It's owning your stuff. Own it. Take accountability. Own it. You know, things can be forgiven. People can move on. You can come up with a different understanding, a different compromise. Do what you have to do, but, you know.
as long as the resolution and the conclusion is positive, or as long as the resolution is going to be positive, because there's always going to be a conclusion. We just it may not be what we expect, it may
Right.
not be what we want,
Right.
but at the end of a resolution is the conclusion. And the conclusion might be to open the next chapter. It's like a chapter in a book, word girl.
Yeah.
When you finish a chapter, okay, well that chapter's over. Now we're going to go on to the next chapter of the story. So the story doesn't end with that conclusion. The end is when you can't write anymore, or you can't think anymore, or you can't communicate anymore. And I don't know when that is. It hasn't ended for me. It hasn't ended for you. It hasn't ended for you either, Jamie. It's just a journey that we're on.
It is. And we're getting close to the hour. We have a few minutes, so I'm going to let you two say your goodbyes, wrap it up a little, and I guess we'll pull the random acts of kindness. We'll be talking about that next week, I would think.
The random acts of kindness, which I call the regular acts of kindness.
Regular acts, random and regular.
We will talk about next week. I just want to say have a great afternoon, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Ann. Thanks, Jamie,
You're
for
welcome.
calling in and spending some time with us today. I appreciate some of the comments that I didn't get a chance to respond to all the comments because we kind of have a limited time, and it's kind of rude for me to.
You know what? Maybe
type.
let's put a word out to anybody that's watching this live and will be watching it later. Why don't you post your comments or questions, and we will open next week's show looking back at them.
Yeah, that's a good idea. When you have.
That's a great idea, Nancy, is because I know it's hard to respond to the comments, and having been on many other live casts like this, it is difficult to squeeze in all the comments and get the show progressing as we want it to progress. For the random act of kindness, I think that's a great topic for next week because that could be an entire show in and of itself.
I'm sure it
For
will
everyone
be.
out there, thank you so very much for listening and watching, and hopefully soon you'll be able to watch me with these guys off in the distance. I would like to say that when we're trying to translate a message, no matter if it's verbally, through a text message, an email, or a social media post, first, as Ann and I have talked about it very often, read it out loud to yourself. Hear yourself saying it, and make sure that the words that you're expressing can actually convey the voice and the tone that you're trying to send out there. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to sign off. You have a blessed and wonderful Easter weekend.
See you, Jamie.
You too, Jamie. And I want to thank all of you for listening today, for our beautiful call that we got early on in the show. I'm going to end the show today with a song I wrote called Waking Up. And one of my favorite lines I wrote in it is, just believe, just have faith, everything else will fall into place. I'm Ann Dennish, living your best life, one show at a time. Thanks for joining in today, and we'll see you next week. Doc, you got... Okay.
Dear children, I have something to say. Life will get harder as you grow and find your way. Dear children, the world can be unkind. Times can be tough. You may feel that what you have is never enough. You will feel heartache. You will feel pain. I can't make you promises in a world that seems insane. But what I can teach you is all that I've learned, and hope that you listen till one day it's your turn. Dear children, try and make good choices. If you should ever fall, I'll be here waiting to answer your call. Don't worry, children, it's all up to you. to the test, but I love you more than life itself. Dear children, the moment you took your first breath, I began to hold mine, hoping to give you the best. You put me to the test, but I love you more than life itself. Dear children.